What's up, guys? This is What If Issei was a ghoul. Now, you've been asking me for this for a long time. Sorry, guys, I haven't been able to make it. I've tried. Trust me, I've tried. But in this version, we're actually making it. So, here's how we have to start it off. So, we have to start off, Kaneki doesn't exist. And Tokyo Ghoul has to kind of take place in High School DxD for this to happen. Now, this is going to be a one-shot, guys, or if it's long enough, it's going to be a part 1. But if y'all want me to make more parts, just comment that down in the comments below, and I'll start making more parts to my what ifs. So yeah, this is what if Issei was a ghoul. Now we have to start this off where both Issei's parents are ghouls. One is the double S class ghoul who is considered as strong as Sir Zex, the white owl, or one-eyed owl. It's a ghoul with one eye, the other one was cut out, in a fight against Sir Zex. Considered the strongest ghoul, he can actually go toe-to-toe with the strongest devil, and the way ghouls even were made was weird. So the devils were trying to find out what happens if a devil starts to become religious. Now, surprisingly enough, it created the variation of a fallen devil, or a risen devil, which is a ghoul. Though that was when they were cross-testing for whole other things, too. They were trying to find out what would happen if a devil, instead of eating regular food, ate humans. And in a combination between the two, the ghouls were born. They had hundreds of test subjects for this, out of the devils. Most of them being revived devils, so the events that happened were kind of odd. In the end, you had it where there were these things called ghouls. And their lifespan were long, but not as long as an actual devil. They were strong, but normally not as strong as a regular ass devil. So, they weren't supposed to be as strong as the devils. Except for the fact there were 12 of them who took after the zodiacs. You know, Scorpio, Cancer, Sagittarius, all that shit. The 12 of them took after that, and each of them called themselves one of the 12. Or, they were also called the 12S class. They have a ranking system from S to D. S being the strongest, A being second, B being third, C being a moderate strength, but most likely the C class is only going to be able to keep up with a mid-class devil. And then D class, which is the weakest class, is for every other devil. I mean, every other ghoul. The strongest ghoul is called the double S class, or the one-eyed owl, who is also the white owl, depending on which one you want to call him. Those are his two nicknames. He is considered the only one who approaches double S class rank, and he is called that because it takes all the S class together to even stand a chance against him. But there was going to be a time they were going to have a battle between the S class and the double S class, which was going to be a 1 versus 12, until a single S class stood against that. She was the strongest S class. Considered the closest to reaching double S class. She would have led them into the battle, but instead she decided to actively bow down to the double S class ghoul. And they became a great relationship. The double S class being the white owl. I'm just going to call him the white owl from now on. The white owl being Issei's father. And the strongest S class, a purple-haired woman who went by the title of Cancer. A woman with long purple hair. And she chose the name because it kind of suited her in her fucked up little way. Because anytime you would meet her, you wouldn't usually survive. Thing is, the 12S class of them were gluttons, the most gluttonous of any other ghoul. And who's going to stop them? The white owl rarely ate humans, but at the same time he still ate. But he would only ever eat the ones that had chosen to die. So the two of them decided they would have a child. When they wound up having a son, they would decide to name him Issei, for the Japanese word of everything, because he was everything to them. Granted, the other 11 S-Class were really mad at this, but they couldn't stand a chance. You would need at least the second and third to take on the first in the S-Class. That's what it would take to take on Issei's mother. And then you've got from 4th all the way to 12th trying to stop Issei's father, which would never be enough. The reason they thought it would take all S-Classes is because he was simply just that strong. Maybe if they were to kill him, maybe if they were to all attack him together without the first, they may have a shot at this, but it wouldn't be a very high one. Granted, this is them without any of special abilities. Now, they still have their Kagune, which is a special thing the devils gave them to see what would happen. They were going to try making, like, bioweapons, but instead they were mixed in with the ghoul batch somehow, and it was weird, but yeah. So, they all had their Kagune. And thing is, even though Issei's considered on the rank of an S-Class, he's not an S-Class. When he was growing up, he always had to eat a human. He hated eating people. But there was one thing he always did. He would go over to suicide spots. His father would be the one to gather the meat. And his mother would oftentimes be the one to gather different meat. She never told him how she got it, but he could basically figure it out she was killing people. But she knew who it was. She always went after people who were murderers or psychopaths or something. Occasionally even going after cannibals to fuck with their minds. Now this is when a difference would occur. A real one from canon. When Issei is about 16. About a year before canon takes place. Issei's in the middle of doing his regular training against his father. At this point, he's already at the point where he can fist fight his father to a stalemate. But when they start pulling Kagune out, he notices how out of power he is, because he's only got 2 Kagune. That's more than anyone else, yes, but they don't really work. One is just these 2 giant, like, wing-looking things, or kind of spiky shells, I don't know. Just look up Kaneki's Kagune, and, yeah, you'll probably find it. There's, like, 2 weird ones that he winds up having. This one that's basically just like a weapon. It's basically just 2, like, big-ass fucking knuckles that slap things around and send them flying. That didn't work very well. And the one that he uses more often, the one that matches his mother's, a 4-tailed, kind of looks like the 4 tails Jinchuriki in a sense. Like, it's like 4 tendrils, which all come out of his back, and he uses them like stabbing things, which he's found a way to combine both of them at once. But the thing is, what he has to do to actually use them is kind of odd. He doesn't like using them as weapons, though he can use them as such. It'd be more for if he was trying to protect something, he would use them as weapons. What he normally does is just wraps the bigger ones around his arms, and the 4 of them, 2 on each leg. And when he does this, they're basically immune to any damage. But it does leave his torso kind of wide open. Though, he doesn't often, like... Basically, he gets into a fighting stance where he's doing boxing to kick some ass. But back to What If. Now, Issei decided he would do this, and he actually went for a final match against his mother and father. His father, who had been weakened over the years after not training, after not really going all out. This was the first time he was going to not hold back on his son. His mother doing the same thing, even though she wasn't any weaker than she was before. Now I'd say that it's more of a chance for all the S-Class to be able to jump, for all the S-Class to be able to beat him without the strongest S-Class, but it still wasn't an easy battle. So this is when Issei decides to go 1v1ing with his dad and then 1v1 with his mom. They decide to change that to where it's a 2v1 parents versus child. Issei was doing damn good. At one point, almost, and I do mean almost, killing them. But he stops, because he's using his fighting style. What his father uses. His father having a matching one. He has the two, like, big ones on the sides. Though when he rarely wraps them around him. He occasionally will wrap one around his arm for a good punch, which issei does all the time to always have that heavy punch. His mother rarely does this, but she occasionally wraps the tendrils around her leg to give her more speed, which works occasionally, but not always. And she can't do it for very long. Issei's using their abilities they call their hidden techniques for his regular fighting. And then, which is rare for anyone to actually have two. Now, you can have a mix between the two, which isn't very uncommon, but you could never really have two actual things. So in this version, what Issei did was one point in the battle he was losing. He let loose for the first time. When all of his tendrils came out, his parents noticed something. He had the 4 they knew of, and the 2 big ones that were like his father's. But it wasn't normal. They started growing more. There was 2 more regular tendrils like his mother's. Now he actually outnumbered hers. And their speed was on par with hers, if not above. So she couldn't keep up anymore. And then they noticed that Issei kind of had 2 more of those bigger ones as well. But when he finally ended up going all out, he stopped looking like himself. He started popping his knuckle he popped his index finger with only using his thumb of the same hand and started looking more like Kaneki going berserk. And then 2 more pairs of tendrils come out, or another pair of tendrils come out. Now he has 8 tendrils and 4 big ones. This means he absolutely doubles his parents' abilities. It's like having to fight 2 of them each. So it's kind of like fighting 4v1 of the strongest 2 ghouls. And they can't keep up with this for very long until the point where they actually lost this bout. Issei's father, with blood coming out of his mouth, spit out a little bit and then wiped his mouth. Issei's mother said, "Alright, that's enough, boys, we're gonna go eat." The guys stand up, get bandaged up by their mother, and by mother and wife, by Issei's mother, and proceed to, walk with her to the kitchen, where they cook a good meal. This is when Issei decides he's going to break the news to his parents. He's got a crush on a girl. They hear this, and they're not sure what to think. Because they know this area where they are in is devil territory. But at the same time, there's only one devil that could really keep up with... There's only one person who could really keep up with them, and that would be Sir Zex. Granted, Graphia possibly. Honestly, it seemed that you would need Sir Zex and Graphia to keep up with these 2. That's the difference in power they have. Maybe even you wouldn't use Sir Zex and Graphia. You might have to have Sir Zex and Leviathan. Though that's only a thought, because it might make it more of a fight, but at the same time, it wouldn't be known to be who would win that one. It may not have been a draw with these 2. But the 12... This is when Issei actually had to meet. This is 2 months from canon right now. We've done a 10-month time skip. So there's literally about 2 months from canon to start, and he has to meet a group of ghouls called the 12 Zodiac, or the 12S class, whichever you want to call them. So Issei goes in there, and he wants to see how strong they are. He's surprised when a big dude wearing a hockey mask and a really nice suit walked in. He was the second to walk in right after Issei himself. Then the others would walk in, but that one guy kind of surprised him. He wasn't sure who this guy was. And surprised enough, the guy answered, "What are you looking at, kid?" He said, "Who are you?" "My name's Jason. I'm the second strongest one here." "Who's the strongest then?" This is when he actually starts pointing to a woman Issei didn't even notice was in there. His own mother. Wait, Mom? You're the strongest out of all of them? Yeah, I guess I never told you. Yeah, I guess not. So, you're the strongest ghoul, Mom? I thought Dad was stronger. He is, honey. By how much? By about 4 times. Holy shit. Yeah, it takes 4 of me to actually beat your father in a 1v1. Really, it would take a 5v1, maybe even more to win. Really? This is when the S classes started calling her out. Bullshit. A guy wearing a mask would say, who would look like an emo dude. And he asked, and who are you? Rank 3rd. I'm the 3rd strongest one here. And I am calling out her bullshit. You know it wouldn't take only 5 of us to win. It would bare minimum take at least 11, including yourself. What do you mean, bare minimum? Look, let's not act like anyone here is strong enough to even hold a candle to that dude. Come on, last time any of us swung at him, as he pulls his mask off, showing a giant scar on his face going down to his neck. This happened. Well, you shouldn't have ran your mouth. What do you mean, ran my mouth? I wasn't trying to. But you wouldn't back me up. All because I called him out for what he was doing. What was he doing? Issei starts to ask. This is when Issei straight up... This is when the guy said... he was trying to create more ghouls. What? He was going around every night with different women, trying to create dozens of little ghouls. You mean... the white one is just a pervy bastard trying to find a harem. This is when Issei's mother would slam her fist down saying, "Silence!" in a roar of rage. Issei starts to laugh a little bit when his father walks in. No, he's right, I was. Back in the day. This is when he saw him, and the first thing the guy with the mask did, he went to kick him right in the face. But that didn't really work, as he had gotten his foot caught easily. Mind you, I was doing that with regular human women, not knowing that they weren't able to handle such a thing, and sadly wound up killing more than I was able to expect. This is when Issei said, "What happened to the ones who survived then?" Well, there was about 7 of them who survived out of the 12. They didn't give birth, but they did, however, gain crazy powers. Like, they became half ghouls. They all have 1 eye. And they're strong as shit. How strong? This is when he said, "Come here," to the weakest of the 12. A young woman with long pink hair. About a quarter of her strength. This is when she said, "Am I supposed to be a measurement tool then?" Yes. Show your full power right now. As she went to everything she had, even letting her Kagune out, it showed that she was actually really powerful, but not in comparison to the person she was standing directly next to. As he basically covered up most of her power until it was only like a quarter of what it actually was, and said this much. That's how strong these people are. What rank would that put them at? Easily A class. Huh. Yeah. This is when Issei would ask the question that's been bugging him. So, where do I stand in all this? This is when his father said something unexpected. Well, Issei, your ranking system comes today. What do you mean? Didn't I just beat you yesterday? Or like 10 months ago? Yes, but we need to make sure you were able to handle your fighting self before you came in this. Wait, as the big guy came up. We're gonna call him Jason, since he's wearing a Jason mask. So we may as well. As his big ass stands up about 6'5", buff as hell. He looks eye to eye with the strongest ghoul, saying, "You really think this kid is on that level, as he was straight up called the only other double S class. And this is when Jason said, that was supposed to be me. Dude, we were like best friends when we were younger. What happened to that? You said we would train until I was reaching double S class with you. But you had to do something for power, didn't you? As he was actually kicked in the chest by Issei's mother. Surprisingly enough, Issei is the one who caught this kick, saying, let's calm down the violence. Okay? Fine. This is when Issei's father actually straight up said it. Son, you're the strongest ghoul nowadays. What do you mean by that? I mean you're stronger than I am. How strong are you right now, though? I'm easily ranked 7th. Or even... yeah, I'd say ranked 7th in the entire world. Including Sir Zex and Great Red in that little thing. Wait, so you're on the strongest beings in existence list? And where would I rank? 4th or 5th? Maybe 4th, 5th, or 6th. How do you mean? Well, I mean, they'd have to change the numbering a little bit. What do you mean by that? Well, 1, you're on easily the level of Drake or Albion. So you'd probably be in between them. Or even ahead of them, honestly. So what rank would that give me? Most likely 4th. Is that strong? Yes. So who's 3rd? The original God of the Bible. Wait, really? Yes. How hard would it be to reach his strength? Well, you may have a shot at it, but a not very high one. Because the only way he reaches 3rd is with him being called the Living Tribunal. Sadly, he can't no longer do that. How strong was the Living Tribunal? It was a force of nature like 100 of me. Issei's father starts to say, and this makes Issei say, what? 100 of you? Mind you, his words made the world. What? Yes, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard. I probably could mess with it, but I would never do that. Really? Yes. So, how strong do you need to be to mess with that? Bare minimum your strength right now, son. Alright? And this is when Issei asked, so, as he pointed out the weakest of the S class, why do you look so familiar? And this is when, surprisingly enough, the woman would say, well, probably because you go to school with my daughter. Wait, what? Oh, she's in the Kendo Club. Pink hair, do you know her? Yeah, I know her. This is when the second weakest of the S class said, my daughter's in there too. I'm surprised because I think you're in class with them, aren't you? A girl with long brown hair in the Kendo Club. And yes, I'm describing 2 characters from this show that are really forgotten, but they could be reminded occasionally. Really? You mean those really powerful Kendo users? Yes, this is when they all pulled out their Kagune for a showing of strength. To really test if they were still in the same ranking system. They were. But Issei, when he pulled his out, it surprised everyone. His Kagune was 10. That's never been a thing before. They put those 10 Kagune probably on the level of at least a 12-winged. Maybe even above that. And it actually scared them by a good bit. But this is where the difference would really occur. Because this is when Issei would start, going around, and when canon would start. Now, I'm sorry guys, this will probably be a multi-parter. But we're going to start this off now. So we get to see Issei kind of go through his life as it wouldn't canon. So his first day back to school, he meets up with those 2 ghouls. And he says, hey, can I talk to y'all for a second? They said, sure, Issei, why? Come with me. Most people thinking he's a pervert, they were surprised that these girls were going with him. And they thought he was a regular human. They thought he may have a ghoul ability, he may be a ghoul, but probably nothing major. they'll blow his socks off when he finds out who they are. Two of the strongest A classes, considered on the brink of S class, just barely weaker than their parents, who are 11th and 12th in S class. Surprisingly enough, whenever they walked in, they were terrified, because Issei overwhelmed them. He surrounded them with his tendrils, and the larger ones were mainly to hold them still, and said, "Release your Kagune now." So they let their Kagune out, both being bladed types, that were kind of like swords they wielded. He said, "Oh, so basically two swords? Let me see, they kind of look like your parents on a lower level, though." But this is when he could see that they were actually building up on theirs. There was a second one coming out of the pink-haired, and a third coming out of the brown-haired. Surprisingly enough, he could tell that the brown-haired was actually the stronger of the two, but not by much, because her dual-wielding blades weren't very large in comparison, while the other girl's single sword was comparatively quite larger. But not exactly more. It was more of like a great sword versus two small swords, or a regular sword compared to two small swords, type thing. And this is when they said, "How did you know we were ghouls? My name is Issei Hyoto." Thing is, this is when their parents arrived. They could feel their daughters in danger. These were both adults that could just easily fly at light speed, of a jump. They got to the school, behind it where Issei was, and they both held their blades to his neck. They both had like three. Actually, the guy with the broadswords had like three of them, and the guy with and the girl, the weakest of them. Actually, they were both women, and actually, yeah, they were both women who were on the top 12. They were the two weaker ones, but still. One having long brown hair, or actually, I'd say short brown hair, and the other having long pink hair. The exact opposite of their daughter's haircuts, in a sense. And you could tell that the one with brown hair had these, like, daggers. Had like 5 of them. All to the neck of Issei. They were like short swords comparative to her daughters in a sense, but just not quite as much. Her daughter just didn't have as many. And the pink-haired woman had these broadswords, having about, I'd say probably 3, as they were all held to Issei's throat. Issei looking at them, letting out his tendrils, still holding their daughters with the larger ones. Using his tendrils, he was able to outpower them both, and hold them all steady, using the tendrils or thing. And he still had 2 tendrils left. As he surrounded them into his arms, he said, "Never attack someone you can't handle. That being said, I was just making sure they wouldn't attack me when I was checking out their Kagune." Really? You couldn't have just asked? I mean, to be fair, I wasn't really trusting that they wouldn't try to stab me. It makes sense. As he puts them all down, saying, "And by the way, you know I'm the strongest, right? Next time you try to throw that shit at me, I'm going to throw you." How far? Let's see. You know where the river is? That's like 30 miles away. Exactly. Well, I don't want to be sent 30 miles away, so no. As they all put their Kagune away, and Issei said, "You know what? I'd like you to. Y'all can train with me." "Really? You can keep up with us? We're ghouls. Of course I can keep up with you. Besides, you saw me just drop your parents and you two all at the same time, right?" "Well, yeah, but at the same time, you have to understand, we kind of didn't know if you could keep up with our sword styles." "Oh, please, they couldn't be any stronger than your parents." You're right. Well, anyway, we'll train later." Okay, now, we got about, like, maybe 10-20 minutes left for the videos, guys, so I'm just gonna make it now. This is when Issei would start off trying to gain a harem. both of these two would actually try to join by being completely outpowered by him. They were like mortals to gods. They were actively weaker than him by every way of the word. But his eyes started to look more like Haneke's. And he wore the same mask. Because he kind of liked the look of it, and he had the mask maker give him that. Since everyone needs a mask, the girls, both of them having one that mainly just covers them, one looking like a rabbit, the other looking like a cat. Now, they both decided to try joining his harem. At this point, they both got really clingy towards him, and didn't really want him talking to other girls. But his friends, they saw that these two hot girls that they liked were approaching Issei. Thing is, mind you, these are part of the 12 ghouls who all need to eat humans, which they were already thinking about eating. They were planning on maybe eating Issei if he was a human whenever he had approached them. But he kind of just stopped that with one, movement. And now they're thinking about eating his friends, which Issei straight up says, no. You're not allowed to. And what are you going to do to stop as they're both held to the ground? This. How? You're not even using your cognate. Simple. It's called brute force. You're just... What? You're not even touching anyone. We can't get up. Let me say it again. I'm using so much bloodlust, you can't get up. That's possible? Quite easily, yes. How strong would someone have to be to break out of this? It's not about how much strength they have. It's all about bloodlust. Even if you were 100 times weaker than me, if you had enough bloodlust, you could break out of this. They started getting angrier and angrier, and they still couldn't break out. Please, you're like children to me at this point, as he showed about a quarter of what he actually had for bloodlust, which was about 100 times what he was just using. They couldn't even speak. As he basically said, look, I can give y'all food, just don't eat my friends. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, guys, I'm back. So, yeah, this is what would start to happen. Issei would still be asked out on a date by some random girl. Thing is, he could tell the bloodlust she had by a mile away, so he said sure. He thought it'd be fun to see what she would do. He wasn't exactly surprised when he found out she was just in it to try to kill him, but he was surprised that she didn't know who he was. She thought he might have a gear, which she wasn't exactly inaccurate, but he never really used his gear. And his gear was actually still the boosting gear. He had it, and he just never used it. He talked to Drake a lot, and Drake noted how strong he actually already was. So he was already technically on par with Drake at his peak. So he wasn't sure if Issei was going to become way stronger than him, or start to max out. Yeah, he's gonna get stronger. Issei could already let Drake out if he wanted to. But Drake said something that pissed him off. He said no matter how strong Issei thought he was, there was always going to be someone stronger, which he did. He understood that one. But when he said the second he got hit, he would eat Issei, Issei straight up threatened to kick Drake's ass, which Drake didn't exactly like, so his words were, then let me out. Thing is, Issei already figured out what the whole thing about being able to eat him, even if he was stronger than Drake before. Simple. It would take that much power away from him, Drake's equivalent, to let him out. Now, the problem with that is, Drake is strong as fuck. And it would bring him back to his peak physical condition. Cut that in half, he's going to come back a lot weaker, but it would only take him about a day to get back to his full strength. But you always had to give out the same amount of magic that Drake had, and it would take that much power away from you. So unless you were twice as strong as Drake, you wouldn't be able to awaken him and be alright afterwards. But, guess what? Issei was already times 1.5, which put him on the level of rank 3rd, the Living Tribunal. Or you could just say he's already about half as strong as Ophis. That puts him on a point where he can actually keep up with Drake even after he would have let him out. But he didn't let him out yet. Thing is, this is when an event would happen. There was a certain person who tried to hurt him. That would be the woman Rainier. Whenever she tried to kill him, he already knew that Rias had given him a seal. Maybe she knew that Rainier was going to try to kill him. Maybe she was planning on reviving him and making him her pawn. Or possibly, because she didn't know how strong he was, she may try to completely overwhelm him. Or if she knew he had a gear, she might try to take it. No matter what, he knew that this wasn't just for her being nice to revive him. So he had a small idea. He was going to let this happen, but he wouldn't die. He wouldn't even be at risk of dying. He would flex his strength to where it would just make it where it seems like he could die, but it would literally just bounce off anything. It'd basically just be like getting hit with a car whenever you're made of iron. And the car's going like 1 mile an hour. So it'd literally just do nothing. But it would look like he got ran over. He would look like he got stabbed. Which he knew he couldn't fake being cut. So he would have to take the blade. He didn't expect to hit with a light spear though. Thing is, he had to act like a ghoul. But then they said something that really pissed him off. They said those 2 girls that he's always hanging out with, Rainier said she was going to kill them. Hearing this and knowing she was strong enough to, he was mad. I know I said they were A classes, but these aren't exactly weak fallen angels. Rainier's actually in this version a 4-wing, which is on par with an A rank most of the time, but those are like the lower A ranks. Thing is, it wasn't Rainier saying she would do it. She said they. Her master, the 10-winged, who's on the level of an S class, and 3 other 4-winged. So that would be strong enough to keep up, or even possibly kill some of the S class. So he understood that they weren't exactly kidding. So he knew he would be the one necessary to fight. Thing is, whenever he knew this was going to happen, they all arrived. Even Freed with a whole army of exorcists, calling him some demon thing or whatever. But then they saw what he was actually going to pull out from his back. It wasn't wings, it was Kagune. They knew what he was. He was a ghoul. They started calling him a fucking lab experiment. Hearing this, he got angrier. And every ghoul woke up. The 12 S-classes were there in about 10 seconds from the beginning of the battle, sitting there watching. His mother and father among the group, sitting there, seeing what's going on. Sir Zex feels the power that's being exuded in his little sister's area. So he would try to show up, but he would sit down on the sidelines next to an old friend, the White Owl, his old friend who was on his level. They looked at each other and said, "Hey, so, what's going on?" The White Owl saying, "Well, this girl said she would date my daughter, so said she would date my son. Now she's trying to kill him. She's a fallen angel, Rainier." This is when Sir Zex started to laugh, because he remembers Rainier from the battle they went on against each other. The only reason she was able to survive that battle, she ran away when she was a regular angel, being one of the many reasons she was kicked out of heaven. Then there was the Donasik who was there, who saw these 2 monsters as he was fighting, understanding, oh shit, they're just using this as entertainment. Then, seeing all of the 12 strongest ghouls. They were literally outpowering him. They could literally outpower him in an instant. and they were going for a 4-on-1. Why weren't they worried about Issei? This is when Sir Zex was actually surprised at what he learned. That Issei was actually stronger than his father. And possibly even stronger than him. Well, I mean, stronger than Sir Zex or Issei's own father. He was at least as strong as he would need to be to fight this group of Fallens who probably couldn't even handle one punch from them. How are they keeping up? This is when he started paying more attention as Azazel would walk in, sit down right next to them, and start laughing hysterically. Even if he was the weakest of the three of them, he had the most agility and speed, so they couldn't exactly take him on. He would probably be better off in a fight, but out of brute force he would not win. Mainly because he's actually the fastest among them. Out of all the leaders of the factions, even Michael isn't on his level of speed. Michael has more brute force than him, but he's not quite near as fast. And Sir Zex just is all brute force and all magic. But he doesn't really have the speed to keep up. Like I was saying, Michael is the weakest of them, but he has the most amount of, he has the most magic at his disposal. Sir Zex has the most brute force at his disposal. And Azazel has the most all-out speed. So, in a battle, it's whoever's game, but they also have to note, Azazel does have all those gears that are literally on him right now. He literally got 3 gears that are all in balance breaker level, waiting for them to turn on. A dagger, that is the golden one. The dragon balance breaker he has. There is a bright pink balance breaker, which is the perfect sword. That basically just makes about 20 swords, which basically it's basically a blade, a large pink sword that lets you copy your body and the blade 20 times. Basically making it where you have like shadow clones in a sense. And then the other one is a kind of like blue axe. And its ability was just the ability to basically swap things. Like, swap places with whoever you're fighting. Better yet, not swap places with whoever you're fighting. It would basically... What it would do is it would slow your opponent down every time it struck them. But it wouldn't take their speed and add it to your own. It would just slow them down. And it was a large axe. Basically, it looks like the blue variation of Rita from 7 Deadly Sins. And it was actually kind of terrifying how ready he was for this. Because he was literally, we had these all to balance breaker. Literally, one hit would cut your speed in half, making you nowhere near fast enough to keep up with him. So he would usually just use that so he would outspeed people. But his golden, like, balance breaker was enough to where he could absolutely overwhelm you with brute force. Because you could never really get damage on him since it would just shatter the armor he was wearing and he would just be able to put it back on instantly. And also, you couldn't even tell who you were fighting because you don't know if you're fighting him or one of his copies since he's got 20 of them out there too. And he fights with the dual-wielding style of the axe and the blade. So they weren't really ready for this. Now, this is when they noted what he had in his pockets. And they honestly asked Azazel, "What's that in your pocket?" "Oh, just some stuff I have." "Me and you both damn well know that stuff is strong enough to kill. Why do you have it on you right now? Are you planning for a battle?" "Honestly, I felt this much power, I came here ready for a battle." "Really?" "Well, you two, I can tell you're not just coming here by yourself." And this is when one of them showed their Kagane was already ready to be pulled out. The White Owl showed his Kagane was already ready. And Sir Zex actually said he already had a spell prepped right now, showing the destructive in the palm of his hand. They said, "I fucking called it." Anyway, great minds think alike. Why'd y'all prep a battle, though? "Honestly, I didn't know who was attacking my son," the White Owl said. Sir Zex saying, "I thought they might be attacking my my little sister in her, her little domain. Makes sense, makes sense. By the way, are we gonna tell him we're here or no? Hell no. He can't sense our powers right now. We're hiding them, right? Azazel's saying, well, I mean, I did let a little bit of it out originally. What if he found that? Trust me, he didn't. I just did it to fuck with that, donut seek. So he could notice where I was. So, in other words, I just put the fear of God into donut seek. Nice. Yep. And what about the rest of them? Oh, they all have no clue. So, what's happening right now? Oh, we're just gonna let this battle play out. With hands in his pockets, he's just watching for a minute. Alright, what about this one? This is when they start seeing these, stabs that shouldn't even hurt Issei start to cut him up. As he faked dying. Issei's father was mad, but then he stopped. He knew his son was faking it. Granted, he still took those attacks, but he knew he's injured his son far harder than that, and his son doesn't even care because he just holds it and lets it heal instantly with his bullshit amount of regeneration, as they are ghouls. So he could have survived this easily. Why did it look like he was trying to act dead? And with blood in his hand, he summoned Rias. Zerek thought this might be a trap, and he had prepared the destruction, with only his hand being slapped by Azazel. As Rias proceeded to put 8 pawn pieces on Issei's chest and revive him. What Issei didn't say, when Issei was acting dead, though Issei got up saying, huh, you fell for that, good. Alright. This is when Issei said, now get the fuck out here, you three. They're surprised when they hear this, and this is when the 12, S-classes thought, he couldn't sense us. You 12, I shouldn't even need to say get out here. Get the fuck out here. Oh, fuck, he caught us too. You two better get the fuck out here too. As he's talking to the girls who were on the other side of the battlefield. Fine, they'll start to walk into view where they're not being hidden anymore. And Issei said, alright, now, Rias, summon your peerage right now. How are you already walking, talking, and know who I am? I'll explain later. Just bring them to me. You know you're not quite in the position to make demand. Just bring them, Serdek said. Rias, listening to her brother, said, alright, fine, I'll bring them. Snapping her fingers as they would appear. Kiba with his blade drawn. The girls looking at what's going on, they're surprised because this meant that 2 of the absolute most amazing sights would ever occur. Issei with his Kagune out full force, and this is when Issei showed off his boosting gear. Drake started talking shit through it and was shut the fuck up just about instantly. But still talking shit. So Issei decided to mess around with it, saying, well, this is Drake, or you may know him the Red Dragon Emperor. Yeah, he's in my gear, and I just wanted to keep him in there for a little bit longer, so, yeah. And that's when he actually would tell them he wanted to become a devil, because he heard this rumor that he was thinking maybe if he became a devil, he could actually eat human food, and he was wondering if it was true. The thing is, no one's ever tried it, so Zex basically just brought him a cheeseburger, and he ate it. He was having the time of his life eating a cheeseburger. A regular-ass cheeseburger. It wasn't even special. It was just regular. Thing is, when he's done, he didn't throw up. His parents said, what the fuck? And this is when Sirzax actually revealed something. It's true, whenever a ghoul turns into a devil, they can eat regular food again. They keep their ghoulish nature. And they're still technically a ghoul, but they're also half devil. But with Issei's case, he's about 20% ghoul, 20% devil, and about 60% dragon. What do you mean 60% dragon? This is when Drake was the one who said it. I basically gave him dragon DNA because he's my wielder. It's what happens every time. In other words, he's strong as shit. Makes sense. We kind of all figured that. So, in other words, no one here is my level. This is when Issei, surprisingly enough, would look at Reese and say, "So, I guess I'm in your peerage now. Thank you. I just want to be able to eat human food." Do you mean I just got played like a violin? Ah, damn it. Yeah, well, it's whatever. As Issei would start to actually say, I'm gonna go eat some cheeseburgers. I'll be back later. What the fuck? As they're stopped when Michael arrived. Issei saying, oh great, as he turned around saying, another one. He looks eye to eye with Michael. Michael walking in with a giant sword on his side. Michael was surprised at what he walked in on. He went into this area thinking that Drake was released or something with the pound of dragon aura he felt like Drake. So he basically just showed up ready to attempt to stab Drake, only to be meted with a guy who had a Kagane out, the boosting gear on his left arm, and was using the most fucked up thing about anyone could ever imagine. Instead of throwing an attack at him, Issei just balled up the cheeseburger wrapper and threw it in Michael's face. Michael looked him dead in the eyes and said, alright, the fuck was that for? You came to a battlefield with a sword, so I throw a cheeseburger wrapper at you. I'm going to fucking kill you now. This is when Issei's father looked Michael eye to eye and said, no, you're not. Oh, shit. Well, if he's here, I can't. So His Excellency saying, you do realize he's out of your league, right, Michael? No way a kid's that much out of my league. Especially with the dragon sword. As it flew to Issei's hand, in his right hand he took it, he said, wow, nice blade. Michael saying, give that back, as he was stopped in his tracks when the droid basically rejected him, saying, no, I'm his now, fuck off. Because the blade basically chose Issei was like, huh, new sword. Nice. As he would show his harem of two so far, the sword, and they said, it's beautiful. As they tried picking it up, noting it was hard to lift. But Issei had his hand on it while they tried to swing it around, and they were enjoying it because they could barely lift it, but they would still like to swing it around. And this is when Issei starts to laugh, saying, wow, really does work pretty well. Well, look, it's getting late and I have to go eat some cheeseburgers for the first time in my life. So, sorry, Michael, but I have to go. It's alright. Just go. Now, as he would look, saying, we need to have a discussion. Let's make a meeting later. You know, but this version, the white owl being the leader of the ghouls. Alright guys, I'm ending this off right now, and this is where we ended off. So, Issei decides to go eat, and the next day he's going to become in the period of Rias. So, yeah, this is the end of part 1 of What If Issei Was a Ghoul.